Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Cory Means Business. I appreciate you joining us today on the podcast and the YouTube show. We've got a special guest in the studio with us today, Alex Holly, a.k.a. Alex Hollywood. He is a man of many business interests and a lot of business experience. He has started a number of businesses and been involved with a lot of other launches and knows a lot and has studied a lot about technology and how it integrates with business operations and so forth. He wanted to come on today and talk about IOT, which some of you might not even know what that is, but I'm going to let him explain it, and then he's going to give us a bit of his background as well, so we know what IOT is, and we also get a feel for your background. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. First of all, this is awesome. I love this setup here. It's a great opportunity. But I've been involved with a lot of different startups here. Everything from online software systems for retail currency traders to CBD products. I've been a consultant for the state of Arizona, an advisor for legislative rule development, and most recently I've kind of looked at how businesses can integrate technology into their platform or what they do on the daily to make it more friendly for the current situation that we have and just going forward. So IoT, when we talk about IoT, Internet of Things, meaning the connectivity between our devices, our smart fridges, our smart TVs, all of those things. I feel like it's under leveraged at this point in this country for businesses, especially locally where I live. So being able to help people find those solutions and get that knowledge out there is something I'd be really interested to do and help people to integrate that, for better profitability and success.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I know a lot of businesses, struggle with that very thing. We talk about, when we were speaking before the show, he was talking about, as entrepreneurs, sometimes we're running our businesses, our day-to-day operations just get so overwhelming. We don't have the opportunity to actually look up and check out some of these things that would actually make our efficiencies and our productivity so much better. I know, obviously, as running businesses now for over 20 years myself, you get involved in the day-to-day operations and the day-to-day emergencies that pop up, and especially if you have employees and regulatory things and all these other situations. Just seems like every day you're just putting out fires left and right. So
exactly,
the chance to look up and check out some new technologies that might actually be very, very beneficial for your business is few and far between for a lot of entrepreneurs. I know that, both personally and obviously from coaching a lot of businesses. However, as I'm sure Alice is going to share with us today, you have to do it. You have to carve out the time to really dig deep into some of the technologies that would help your business be a lot more efficient. And especially now as we're talking about this COVID environment, this COVID situation, the economic difficulty it's going to bring. Obviously, we've got 20 million people out of, unemployed still. There's going to be a lot there's going to be a lot of industries that are going to be absolutely decimated. Now, there's going to be some other industries that are going to kill it, right? And a lot of the industries that are going to kill it, matter of fact, are really, really good with their IoT.
Correct.
They're really, really good with that. And if you look at some of the big players, obviously, that are really doing well right now, Amazon,
fully integrated.
Fully integrated.
Robotics, AI, all that.
All of it.
And it's great to see that leverage because a lot of people have always been scared of it. The whole, the Terminator thing. Is AI going to become self-aware? Where's Skynet? What's that going to happen? That conspiracy bullshit. The fact is, this technology is going to help us, and people need to understand that so that they can leverage it for their benefit. I don't think Amazon's evil. I don't think the intent is to do anything but make our lives easier and utilize that kind of technology. Even something just so simple as having an app. How many businesses, even small businesses, would benefit from having something that their customers can utilize to find them better or to reference them or to be able to help market that service or product. A lot of businesses don't even utilize Yelp the way they should. So it's just, raising that awareness to start at the beginning and understanding what it is. just making that first step, I feel like is something that not a lot of people do. I have one client, he owns 2 restaurants here in town, and he has a great product. He really cares about his customers. He cares about his service, but doesn't have the time to manage his Yelp page, and just that, that alone, managing
if we start talking about digital marketing, we'll go down a rabbit hole to China, which, digital marketing is really something that I've worked on over the last 5 years, because I saw it as the future. And so, and I'm fairly tech savvy. I'm definitely not, a techie or anything like that, but I'm pretty tech savvy, especially when it comes to useful tools for my businesses. But 5 years ago, I realized I don't know digital marketing the way I need to. And if I don't start figuring it out, I'm going to get crushed out. Right. So we talk about it, and you know this more than anyone. We talk about some of this IOT, the Internet of Things, which is basically the connectivity of all of your technologies and how they're going to be helping to run your business. And, we use the example of Amazon being the top of the list. Everything is integrated. All the technologies are integrated. Correct. Right? They use every possible technology there is. Amazon utilizes, and they utilize it very well. And this is one of the reasons why obviously they are who they are. But on a smaller scale, obviously, because I'm not Amazon. I don't think any of my viewers here are Amazon.
Jeff might be watching.
Hi, Jeff. How you doing?
Might be watching.
He'd good to check it out. He'd do good to check it out. But you still, even on a micro level, you have to do IoT. You have to have your technology identified. You have to have your systems available, and you have to make them integrate and work together. And if you don't, you're missing out on a big chunk of productivity and profitability ultimately.
Correct. Even just starting with your point of sale system. And most businesses have one. If they're a brick and mortar setup, then chances are you have a point of sale system where people, use credit cards or cash or whatever it is to purchase services or goods from you. Just upgrading that to the most recent technology might be the best thing you could do. There's companies like Square. Square has a great setup, and this new stuff that's coming out with digital payments. Cash App, Apple Pay, a lot of stuff like that. If you can't accept Apple Pay, I've turned around and walked out of places, big places that, I'm not going to name them, stores that everybody might go to on a daily basis to get food, let's say, or groceries, and they don't accept certain types of payment. And it's like, you know what? I have every one of my cards is in this, so I can just use my phone to pay for anything. But when you tell me you don't have the compatibility to use my payment method, A, that pisses me off, and 2, that means that, okay, you guys haven't been thinking about this. I understand that, it takes a lot to change over a chain of 80 grocery stores, but that's something that should be thought about, I feel like, and it's going to make a difference. Smaller businesses, even, you need to start looking at that kind of stuff, and that's just the beginning. That's a small change that can be made, and a lot of these companies make it really easy to make the change over to those systems.
Sure. Yeah, I think if you look at a modern day point of sale system, the vendor is going to have all those solutions, and if the vendor you're using now for your point of sale doesn't have all that, well, then look for a new vendor.
Correct. Exactly. And that's just the first step, I feel like. And there's other businesses that aren't retail based. How do they keep up? I would ask you this, because you're the subject matter expert. When it comes to the businesses that are going to be struggling, have you kind of identified what industries those are?
Sure.
What do you think? Which industries do you think those are that would be first affected in the long term?
I don't think it's even a secret anymore for anyone. It won't be earth shattering, but clearly the restaurant business is going to get hammered. Retail is going to get hammered. But then when you realize, okay, what does that mean exactly? It isn't just that restaurant, but then you look at the supply chain that goes to that restaurant. So then you have produce companies, meat delivery companies. You have local, distributors of all kinds of things that go into these restaurants, from their equipment leases. You've got the companies that do the leases for the dishwashers. You have the companies that supply, like Standard Restaurant, that supplies the restaurant stuff.
Prudential, companies like that.
Exactly, yeah. So Standard Restaurant Supply, which is a pretty big company, think what's going to happen to their business. Now, they're not in the restaurant business directly. They're in the restaurant supply business.
Correct. Supplying towels and tables and tablecloths and paper goods, everything like that.
Exactly. And what about like the uniform companies and the companies that, do all those things for hospitality? hotel business, right? The hotel business obviously is getting crushed. Travel is getting crushed. But it's just not the hotel that you would go and stay at that's getting crushed. That hotel uses what, 100 different vendors?
Yep, exactly. The services, the ancillary services that make that travel experience or whatever.
Correct.
And you know, as you know, I've worked in entertainment and hospitality for years, you know, and that's where my passion ultimately lies. You know, just using the Internet of Things theory, using technology to make those experiences and that whole genre of business, that's where I'm at. That's the direction I'd like to be going personally with my business and my endeavors and the solutions I want to provide. Because when I hear that going to a hotel or a resort, all that has changed and not for the better, or a dining experience, those are the things that we're all missing right now.
Sure.
And those, not to mention the entertainment industry. I mean, try to go to a strip club right now. You can't. You can't, dude. And that,
damn it, you can't.
You can't. You know?
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. So, you know, when people got to really consider what the overall effect of these shutdowns are going to be, it isn't, like I said, just the hotel and just the restaurant. You know, it's going to be all the supply chain that goes into those people, which is a lot. And that's really what I don't think's hit everybody yet. But it's coming. So when that happens and that, you know, when the stimulus money runs out and all the things that are kind of, you know, putting us on life support, people run out of savings, people run out of borrowing sources, the credit cards get maxed out. We haven't begun even to deal with the defaults on mortgages and rental properties.
Whole industries are
exactly
propped up like this and kick one of those legs.
Yeah. And it's going to fall like cards. And so ultimately what we want to, you know, make the message of today's show is that you better be ready to adapt and you better be ready to improve your efficiencies in your business, even if you're not directly involved in one of these supply chains or one of these directly affected businesses. Let's just say your business has nothing to do with either of those. Well, you have to understand your customers are in those supply chains. So now your customer base is going to be shrinking.
Diminished dramatically.
Diminished customer base, diminished spending power of your customer base. So you may have a business completely unrelated to any of these industries that are going to take it on the chin, but because your customers do, the spending power of your customers is going to be greatly affected. And that's something I know for a fact.
And I never
that
thought of
businesses
that.
haven't been thinking about.
No, I didn't think about that. And that's really interesting. I mean, even living here where we do, you know, the market's very based on tourism. We're very seasonal here. Right. So what do you do when everything's based on hospitality?
Right.
And a clientele who are older, who are, you know, who are very much affected by what we're dealing with, you know, in a real physical way.
Sure.
Know? We're losing a customer base. How do you deal with that?
Right. You know? So there's a few strategies, and the strategy we want to talk about today, and, you know, certainly we're going to cover this topic ongoing. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please do to both the podcast and the YouTube channel. And no matter where you're hearing this from, make sure that you go subscribe to both of those, because we're really going to be tackling, you know, especially over the next few weeks, the next few shows, we're going to be tackling exactly how to make sure that you and your business and your livelihood isn't going to be drugged down because some of these other tanking industries are going to be pulling you down. And a lot of that has to do with you're going to have less customers. And your customers are going to they're going to spend less. So what you're going to have to really focus your changes on going forward is what Alex is talking about, which is improving your systems, improving the efficiency of your operation, so that as you're dealing with fewer customers, you may have something like the different payment structure, which is going to allow someone that came in to spend more. Mm-hmm. Whereas maybe he has maybe he has $15 cash in his pocket, and you don't take Apple Pay, but he's got all this money on Apple Pay.
I'd have spent $500 if you would have accepted my payment method.
Exactly. So something as small as that may seem trivial at first, but then when you really think about it and you reverse engineer how that will affect your business, you're losing sales just by not having something as simple as being able to accept payments in different ways and a broader spectrum of payments. Then, you know, we can then obviously go on to the apps, right? So the point of sale systems, what else can you share with our audience concerning what other technologies that you think would be really impactful for a typical small business having to really restructure and get tighter, higher and tighter in their operations? I mean, being able to it depends on the industry, because it's, you know, if you don't. Well, let's stick with the restaurant industry. I love the restaurant industry. So a restaurant. So let's just say we got a restaurant and we're preparing for less customers, and, you know, how do we improve our operations from a technology standpoint to where we can still keep revenues going with less customers?
I would say honestly, so my office is where I office at. There's a good example of how to stay relevant right next door. McDonald's. Okay. McDonald's, they completely just renovated this one. It was the last one in our city that hasn't been renovated to these new stores. I mean, larger menus that are digitally interactive, huge light up, LCD screens. Okay. Most restaurants don't have something like that for a drive-through. And I think that would be something that you really want to look at, is finding a way to be more visible and more accessible. And technologies like that make it so. I'll go back again. The same client I was talking to that I have, he wanted to find a way to make it so that customers would purchase from him ultimately. Even just using stuff like DoorDash and being available on Uber Eats, all those kind of gimmies that are out there, ancillary services that help the customer access your product.
Perfect. It's funny, I just wrote down the word access, and he said it right there. Because if customers don't have access to your goods and services, well, then now you're losing sales. So not only are we talking about being able to accept different forms of payment,
accessibility,
which also goes into accessibility, but now we're also talking to visibility, interaction, right? The ability to interact with your business besides just walking in the front door, because maybe some people aren't going to want to walk in the front door anymore, but they would still be willing to access your business. Correct.
And I'll say this too, there is one business who's always had their theme, their method, Sonic. I mean, they have actually the sauce right now. You can drive up without having to drive through. And I actually recommend that to some restaurants or some food establishments. Make it so people can drive up and order from a menu right here. If you have parking spaces available, that's an easy way to do it. You can order the monitors and the systems to order from a touchscreen menu, and you can mount it in a parking space or two. Try it out. It doesn't cost as much as you might think. I looked into those digital touchscreens 2 years ago, and they were affordable. A 50, 60-inch monitor that does have a digital menu and the ability to order, connectivity with your point of sale, meaning cardless readers or digital readers for non-cash payments, can be integrated all into a system like that. There are companies who provide those services out of the box, so you can literally just set it up, make it happen, and it doesn't cost an arm and a leg. You don't have to have a drive-through. You can have a drive-up. People don't necessarily want to leave their vehicles. Find the solution so that you can get the food to their vehicle.
There you go. Very smart. So, for instance, I know a lot of restaurants now, if you want to order from them, you have to call, right? They don't have an app. Their website isn't, you can't order on the website. So the menu may be on the website, right? Or the menu might be online. But that's it. So you still have to call, which means someone has to man the phone, and right?
Then, you don't want to add more work or another liability in an employee who has to sit there and take calls all day. But if it's just as simple as I drive up, I input my order, the ticket prints out inside, and now I know to make this order for this customer, I can now walk it out to them and give it to them. That's something one person can receive the order, make the food, take it out. That's a one-person operation.
Right.
And if you have to save money and you have to that's a very simple job too. Pretty much anybody can run food from point A to point B on foot. That creates a need for a job if it takes off to the point where it's being
and again done. if you don't have the space, or the landlord maybe wouldn't let you do it, or maybe your restaurant's in a strip commercial where you really couldn't have something like that, you still could have people that can come out on a drive up, and maybe with an iPad like In-N-Out does, right? So In-N-Out has been doing this for years, obviously. If the line gets too long, what they'll do is they'll send people out with iPads, and they'll just start taking orders all through the line.
Being proactive. That's what good businesses do. The good businesses are, like you said, they're showing it. They're going above and beyond, and they're making those changes. So just being able to kind of watch what the big guys are doing. They don't fail. They don't fail for a reason. Amazon, McDonald's, people can say what they want about McDonald's. I love the way that they have always been there worldwide. They create so many jobs, and I think that's a great thing. I don't care what anybody says. They're okay with me.
And that's really, like you said, one of the smart things that you can do, and one of the things that I teach people that I mentor in the companies that I coach is, look, you don't need to invent any of this stuff. It all exists.
Correct.
What you need to do is you need to go seek it, right? It's like anything else. You need to go seek the knowledge. So instead of hoping that it just falls in your lap, or hoping that you just figure it out accidentally, go seek out the solutions. And like he said, one of the easiest ways to do that is to literally go to some of the places that you already frequent, like McDonald's and In-N-Out and Amazon and Walmart and all this, and obviously start hacking them. Right? Start hacking them and start saying, hey, what technology are they using or what system are they using that I could steal, right? Figuratively steal, copy, and integrate into your own business. And there's a lot of these systems, like Alex is saying, that really aren't as expensive as you think they would be. Some of them are very cheap, especially when you're talking about something that you can run off of a phone, a cell phone, or an iPad or something like that. And when you get a nice iPad now for $200, I mean, they're not even expensive.
Exactly.
You know.
You can get them given to you a lot of times if you get the service plan. And you said something really interesting when you talk about stealing, for the lack of a better term. It's interesting because when you have that business owner, that person who's active enough to go and actually seek out what they want, a lot of times you'll find it. But chances are, if you created a business for yourself and you own your own business, you're thinking already. So if you're able to take yourself away from the day-to-day and think, you might even be able to reinvent something in a new way and take something to the next level. And I think that being inventive is also what's probably going to make the cream will rise to the top, so to speak. You know, a lot of people see this as very, very detrimental and a huge step backwards for what's going on in our country right now, let alone worldwide. But I see this as a huge amount of opportunities arising because it's forcing people to get with the program. You know, and whatever I don't pretend to know everything, but I'll tell you there is going to be a lot of change. And if you're able to recognize that and take the time that you have to be able to reinvent the fucking wheel.
Sure.
I mean, I hate to say it, but because you're taught throughout life, don't reinvent the wheel, just do this. Make phone calls for me, do this. No, when I see you talk to your team, that's what you tell them. You say, you know, here, there's ways to do this.
Yeah.
Figure it out. You know, if you look for it, like you were saying, if you look for it, you will find what you want. And I really encourage people to go and do that. Seek it out. It does exist. It's all out there.
It's all out there. I mean, again, I was mentoring someone a couple days ago, and you know, he came to me with a specific situation, and I could just tell the look in his eyes. He thought that he was the only one in the world with this situation. And I kind of chuckled, you know, and I said, you know, there's like 5 million of you right now with the exact same problem you have. And that's one of the things that, you know, if you're going to grow as a professional, if you're going to grow as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, here's what you got to realize. Your problem, your situation is hardly unique. There's someone literally 3 blocks from you, and no matter where you are, that has the exact same problem you do. Mm-hmm. And there's been a whole bunch of really smart people that have already figured out the solutions to those exact problems.
Correct.
What I have found in coaching business owners over all these years is they all fall into this trap of thinking that their situation is like this unique situation. Nobody would get it. Nobody's got a solution for me. And it's just obviously nonsense. The solutions are already out there because people, and not just a few, tons of people have already had your exact same problem. And they already had to deal with it, and they got creative and found solutions. It's just a matter of seeking them out and being open to the fact that there's a solution. So as a business owner for myself, I can tell you whenever I run across a problem or I run across something that's cumbersome, it might not even be a big problem, but let's just say I'm in daily operations, and I say, man, it'd be really cool if there was something that would really just make this work a little better or be a little more efficient, right? I immediately say to myself and remind my own self, well, there's a solution for that. Trust me, someone's already been in that situation, already thought about it, already invented it. And sure enough, I go do some research, which is Google, obviously, and I hate to plug Google, but
they own the internet, dude.
They own it, you know. So I guess we'll have to try to figure out some way to compete. But you Google it, what your problem is, and sure enough, all these solutions start popping up. So the key is, though, if you don't look, you're not going to find, and that's really what happens. As I coach businesses, I'll say, well, what's your problems? What are you struggling with? What's holding you back? And I start doing the probing, and I start finding out what's going on. And sure enough, I start getting this feedback that it's all like this unique problem, and they're a unicorn, and no one will understand the problem. And I just start laughing, and I, not laughing sarcastically, but just, chuckling because I've been down this road a gazillion times. And I say, look, I got good news and bad news. The bad news is you wasted a lot of time. The good news is there's solutions for all this, and I'm going to help you get them, right? So I think the big takeaway here, we want to wrap this up because we're running about time here, but I think the big takeaway from this show, from this podcast, and what Alex has been able to share with us in the insight is the access to your business. If customers don't have access to your business, you're going to lose sales. And that access comes in many forms. The access comes in payment forms. It comes in being able to order. It comes in being able to see what your goods and services even are. I can tell you, even in 2020, I'll look up some of the businesses that I coach. I'll look up their websites, and I'm like, it doesn't even say what the hell you do here. Like, there is zero explanation of what you're offering your customer base. You're waiting for the phone to ring, for Christ's sake, and you're wondering why your sales are down. Lack of accessibility. I can only imagine what the accessibility to payment and accessibility to ordering is after that, you know. So accessibility, right? So the big takeaway here is accessibility. So what we're going to do in the comment section or the description of the video, wherever you're going to find this, I'm going to put a bunch of links. I'm going to put some links to Alex's information. So if you want to get in touch with him, again, he's going to be moving his business to doing a lot of these solutions. So if you're in the Arizona area, you just in Arizona? Where are you at exactly?
I mean, I'll go wherever the job is, man. There's not, honestly, I like to travel, so
yeah.
you know,
has skills, will travel. That's our guy right here.
Yeah.
So you know, reach out to him if you have questions about any of this, you know, operating stuff or how technology can be integrated with your business. Reach out to him. I'll put his contact details in the description wherever this video or information is found. And again, I'm gonna put a bunch of links. I'm gonna get with him, and we'll put a bunch of links to different point of sale companies that you like, or maybe some examples of something like that we can put in the description.
You can do that.
But just the takeaway this week: accessibility. Start examining. So here's your homework, everyone, for the week until the next episode. I want you to really start examining the accessibility of your business. Is your business really accessible? And you know what? You got to be honest with yourself. Don't lie. If it isn't, it isn't. It does you no good to lie to yourself that you've got good accessibility to your business when you really don't. So be honest with yourself. Do a top to bottom examination of your accessibility on all levels. Is my description accessible? My goods, my services, is it well described out there that anyone can see it and find it? How's the accessibility to my payments? How's the accessibility to ordering, right? If you have no accessibility to what your goods are or even what you're selling, and people got to call a phone number that, you know, either somebody doesn't answer or there's an antiquated voicemail attached to it. Okay, you got to make some big changes, right? So we're gonna keep digging. I mean, this is a fantastic subject matter.
And it's just the beginning. It's just the start. These are the basic things, you know, and that's where you have to start. That's where, and you know, most people don't even know they need assistance, and they don't want it. Yeah. How do you deal with that too? I would even go into that.
Well, it's a battle. You know, it's a battle because people, again, it's this syndrome. You know, I call it the unicorn syndrome. People think they're a unicorn and that there isn't solutions for their situation, and it's just dead wrong. You have to open yourself up to being willing to listen to different solutions, right? And I know that those usually come in the form of a sales guy, right? We think salesman or that guy. So they avoid solutions. Let me tell you what a symptom I see a lot.
Because they don't want to be sold something?
They don't want to be sold. And that's a problem, right? You got to be open to being sold. And not that I'm saying you got to deal with used car salesmen and the slimy kind of salespeople. I'm talking about you got to be willing to be sold solutions, right? So open your mind up to being sold. There's nothing wrong with being sold. But you just have to be an educated buyer. You have to be educated on what you want your solution to look like. So these are the things you got to research first. So before you start talking to salespeople, sometimes do a little bit of research, at least understand what your problem is, or at least be open to saying, hey, look, I may not know what my accessibility problem is, but I know my website sucks, and my customers that find it accidentally by Googling something about this or whatever, come across it, they're not even sure what I have to offer.
Right.
If that's your situation, okay, you don't need to know the solution, but you need to know, you have to ask a question about what that solution is. And someone like Alex can help out a lot with that. And we're going to be covering a lot more of that. So again, if you haven't subscribed, I'm going to ask you to do it again. Hit the bell too, so you get notified of new shows as they come up, because they come up weekly and you don't want to forget, because we're really going to be diving in to how we can improve operations of existing businesses so that we can get through this COVID thing together. We can make the adaptations that we need, and really make sure that we don't lose more businesses, because the last thing we want to do is lose more businesses. There's going to be enough that are going to get crushed out already. We don't want to lose any more. So, hey, Alex, thanks again for coming in.
Thank you so much
really
for having
appreciate
me,
it, man. Awesome time.
I love what you're doing here, man.
Hey, I appreciate it. And I guess that'll wrap for this week's show, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you.